Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dental economics subscribers. Thanks for jumping into a quick session on how to unlock hidden revenue within your DSO schedule. My name is Dan Crawford. I'm the Director of Enterprise Markets here at Clear and Membercy. And today we're going to take a brief but pretty deep dive into how best to optimize your practice's schedule relative to procedure, avatar, and payer type, and what that might mean for you in terms of some revenue opportunities that perhaps you're not taking a very close look at. So we all know, of course, that the whole business is going to run through the schedule, patients coming in the door. The patients themselves are your number one asset when it comes to revenue generation. So today we're going to discuss a little bit about how we can make the most of every patient walking in your door and how that can inform your scheduling strategy. All right, so let's jump in. So first thing we're going to want to do, of course, is define what is your office or a given practice's most productive day. And of course, there's three different areas that we want to look at with respect to defining this. First, of course, you want to look at the procedure, right? Some procedures are much more productive than others when it comes to revenue and engagement from the patient. Then, of course, you want to look at the patient avatar, we'll call it. Who is that patient walking in the door to get a given procedure, taking up that chair time? Is it a retiree? Is it a student? Is it a working professional? That's going to be very important when it comes to thinking about the schedule as well. And then lastly, probably the most universal and constant factor here is the payer, right? What insurance does that patient have? Do they have coverage? And of course, if they do, what does that coverage type mean for your revenue, for your bottom line, and for your margins, right? So we're going to take a deeper dive into all three of these, but this is where you want to start: procedure, avatar, and payer. So first, if you look at the procedures, we of course want to maximize these. Now, you may be doing some of this already, but when we're talking about optimizing the schedule, this is where we need to begin, right? So looking at your given dental practice, looking at your providers, run a report to understand what services are being done by each individual doctor, filter out your basic things like your exams, your x-rays, etc., and really look to focus on those higher producing procedures and stack rank them accordingly to get a good understanding of what is the most revenue producing procedures that I have and I'm doing in a given practice, and what are the least, and rank those accordingly. That's going to be a great place to start. And then from there, concurrently, we need to look at the patient avatar, right? Who are the patients that are accepting those given procedures, and can we get some matches there with respect to highest producing and patient avatar? So maybe the most consistent patients coming in the door are, say, your retirees, your senior patients. They, of course, have often the most time on their schedule. They have the highest needs clinically. That's going to definitely be a patient that you want to prioritize with respect to your schedule. Next, maybe you have your stay-at-home parents and your pediatrics, their children, right? Again, a little more time on their schedule, really able to come in more often, get the work done. Another one you might want to think about prioritizing. And then you've got last on the list, your working professionals and your students. Folks that you do want to see, right, every 6 months or more, but probably have the most inconsistency with respect to their schedule and maybe the least reliable with respect to scheduling and completing those appointments, right? So you want to start with the procedure. Let's find out what's going to be the highest producing for us. And then concurrently, let's understand what are going to be the most consistent, reliable patients coming in the door to complete those procedures and those appointments. Let's prioritize them accordingly. So lastly, then, let's look at the patient spectrum and how that relates to the payer mix, right? So at Clear Membercy, we like to essentially segment your patients into three different kinds of cohorts. So you have your cash pay, so no coverage whatsoever. You got your patients on either in-house dental membership or discount plans, whether that's something you administer on your own or you leverage a partner like Clear and Membercy to handle that for you. And then, of course, you've got the bulk of your patients, those with some sort of PPO or dental insurance coverage, right? So all three of these patients are coming in the door, scheduling appointments, taking up chair time, but each of them have different outcomes with respect to behavior, reliability, and ultimately production and revenue for you, right? So before we dive into that, let's kind of take a step back, though, and look at the most common reason why these kinds of patients don't behave optimally and therefore, of course, have a negative impact on your schedule when it comes to what they're doing. That's going to start, of course, as most things do, start and end with cost. So data from a biennial survey from 2024 shows that 41% of patients between the ages of 19 and 64 reported delaying dental care due to cost in 2024. 41%, right? So let's kind of go down the line here a little bit. 32% of these patients had both health insurance and dental coverage. So about as buttoned up as you can get when it comes to coverage is concerned. Almost a third of those patients are still delaying care due to cost, right? Now, if we look at patients that have health insurance but no dental, that number goes all the way up to 60%. So no dental coverage, but health insurance, 60% are delaying cost or care due to cost. And then if you look at that last bar, the worst offenders is going to be, of course, patients that have no coverage whatsoever. About 68% of those folks indicated that they delayed dental care due to cost, right? So this, of course, has a wide-ranging impact on your business, but of course directly ties into the schedule. If I'm not on the schedule coming in to get work done, I'm not getting the procedure accepted, I'm not making revenue from my practice. If cost, of course, is a major barrier to that, regardless of coverage option, then we really need to find a better way to get around that and maximize the schedule and get these patients to come in more consistently. So with that in mind, let's look at this last bar, 68%, in a little bit more detail. So when we think about no-shows, new patients, things of that nature, we're always kind of doing new patient specials, we're promoting, we're trying to get new traffic in the door. But when we look at what those patients do once they schedule that appointment, new patients have, of course, the highest chance of no-show. About half of patients that schedule an appointment, a new appointment, will not show up for that appointment, right? Major issue. And of course, if we look at the avatar or the coverage type for that patient, those without coverage, they're your worst offenders as far as no-shows are concerned. Now, once we do get them in the door and they do complete that appointment, the next challenge becomes attrition. We want to keep them coming back, get them on for 6 months, get them on for 4 if they're perio, whatever that may be. But attrition then, of course, becomes a major issue once you do complete that appointment. So of new patients that do complete that initial appointment, 44% of them will not return in the next 18 months, right? And again, patients without coverage are your worst offenders here, right? So if we're thinking about the schedule, we know that getting them patients on the schedule is critical, but obviously we want them to complete that appointment and stay with you month over month, year over year. That is another challenge in and of itself. So what exactly can you do in that respect? Or what does this look like at an even more granular level? So at Clear Membership, we work with about 20,000 dentists across the country. And that ranges from your single location, independent doctor practice, all the way up to some DSOs that have more than 1,000 offices. So the point being, we have access to a lot of data to help inform some of our guidance that we give to practices. What you're looking at here on the screen are some averages from a recent analysis that we did for a number of practices that we currently work with. And we're looking to try and understand by cohort, again, remember that patient spectrum, cash pay, membership, and insured, what is each patient doing with respect to visitation, procedure acceptance, and ultimately collections for that given practice. Let's again look at the worst offender. Your cash pay patients, only 18% of active cash pay patients are coming in for a visit at a given practice, only 18%, right? So that is a huge gap there with respect to opportunity. And when they are coming in, as noted by their collections here and the procedure acceptance, they tend to do the bare minimum, right? Maybe they have an emergency, maybe they're getting one cleaning every now and then, but there's a lot of upside here to getting these patients in more, right? Let's look at the next cohort, your PPO, your insured patients, folks that are coming in and spending the most time in your chairs on your schedule. Much higher visitation rate, right? At 63%, much higher procedure acceptance rate. But as we know, with insurance reimbursement, it's very inconsistent. So your collections on these patients are not really all that much higher than they are, say, from a cash pay patient. But then we can look up here to your membership patient, and this is what we would call your prime time patient. They're exhibiting all the optimal behaviors that you want from all of your patients, right? Nearly 90% of them are coming in and visiting the practice. They're accepting the most amount of procedures, and of course, thereby, they're generating the most amount of revenue for the practice. So we look at that patient spectrum, cash pay, membership, PPO, all of them visit in varying consistencies, but your membership plan patients tend to be the best bang for your buck with respect to getting them on the schedule and what that means for your revenue numbers. So what do you do with this information, right? How do you take this next step? First, again, after taking those steps to stack rank your procedures, find your patient avatar, then let's look at what is your cash pay opportunity. And if you have a dental membership plan, let's convert those patients over to that membership plan and get those ideal behaviors. And then in lockstep with that, of course, let's again optimize and prioritize those highest paying insurances that you accept in your office, so that again, you're getting the most out of every single appointment and every single patient walking in your door. So one more little bit of data, and then we'll wrap up with some takeaways here. But this is, again, another analysis that we've conducted for some practices that we currently partner with. And what you're looking at is on the x-axis here, all the different payers and insurances that this practice accepts. You got MetLife, Delta, Clear and Membership, United, Cigna, and then your cash pay. That's the x-axis. The y-axis in red is representing the amount of production that this practice has seen from these payers over an 18-month period. The blue bar, of course, representing collections. So the punchline here with this is that your membership plan outperforms 73% of payers in terms of production and 100% of payers in terms of collection, right? So again, that is your prime time patient that you want to prioritize on the schedule. So if I were a practice owner looking at this, I would say, okay, so I've got a wide variance of production and collection. These payers over here, I definitely don't want to prioritize them. I've got over 500 cash pay patients that are not on my membership. I want to get them over to this membership plan to start kind of seeing these kinds of results. And then, of course, I'm going to prioritize my higher collecting payers as well, right? So it starts with, again, understanding what is the impact of every single payer, patient, and avatar on the schedule, and how can you optimize from there. So some takeaways here. The membership plan itself achieves a number of different goals for you. It provides a much more transparent and confident way for your patients to accept care. It enables you to lead with that loyalty aspect and really double down on that patient experience side of things. Obviously, it improves case acceptance and loyalty, things that we all want. And unlike with insurance, you've got a lot more freedom with a membership plan because you're setting the fees, you're setting the structure, you're setting the discounts, and you can really just focus on that relationship with the patient long term. So if you have a membership plan or you are thinking about implementing one, here are some things to really think about and really take into account, whether you want to start one or you want to audit your current process. Number one, we know it's difficult, especially in a large group, to standardize and scale things. So if you are going to do this and go down this route of using a membership to optimize the schedule, make sure that you are measuring that plan appropriately, you have good benchmarks, and of course, you've got good systems underneath. Many in-house offerings don't have the technology or the software to automate payment, renewal, automate performance, do the marketing. You want to make sure you have systems in place for that. And then when it comes to personnel, we know front office teams are so task saturated. So make sure that they have the support and are enabled to prioritize this initiative because we know the upside is enormous across your business. So really make sure the teams understand the why behind this prioritization. And of course, they have the tools to do so. And the last thing is be proactive with this initiative as well, right? I can't tell you how many times we have spoken to a dental group that says, you know what, I like this idea. I think I want to get started, but give me 3-4 months. I want to hire a hygienist, someone look at my payers, et cetera. And then they're back within a month saying, hey, you know what, let's get this going right now. There really is no downside to being proactive with this. The sooner you do it, the sooner you can optimize your schedule, the sooner you can build a stronger foundation for your revenue. So lastly, what have we learned here today? Some key core takeaways. First, let's define that most productive day for your practice. Take stock of your highest paying procedures, your most consistent and reliable avatars, and on your schedule, what are the most valuable times for you where you have availability, your providers are there, and then you can give those patients the time and care they need. And to do that, you can also go ahead and create something like a soft block on your schedule to really prioritize prime time patients, your membership, your highest paying payers, and really get those folks in. And then lastly, upgrade those cash paying patients to that membership plan if you have one, or implement and then convert and really get the most bang for your buck again with respect to those patients and the behavior that they're going to exhibit long-term for you. So that about wraps it up for me. Again, my name is Dan Crawford, Director of Enterprise Markets at Clear and Membercy. If you want to learn more, or if you have questions, feel free to email me directly or scan the QR code and follow the next steps. But hopefully you learned a couple things today, can start taking some action. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night.